Hello. So we've had our appetite whetted with what was an absolutely stunning reveal of this cafe range for Warhammer the Old World. It has got me absolutely hyped for the game, even more so than I was already, and I cannot wait, maybe a little bit greedily, to see what's actually coming next as well. We've not even had this range out yet, but hang around for a few minutes while I have a look at what we might get to see from another new faction that are rumoured to be joining the game, Kislev. We already know quite a bit about Kislev from their multitude of appearances in lore and even on the tabletop already. Unfortunately for me, I'm old enough to remember them having models for Kislev units all the way back in the early 90s, and they continued to appear for a good many years or so after that. So if we dive into the annals of history, what can we tell about the faction that may influence what we get in an updated release for Warhammer the Old World? Kislev is a powerful human kingdom based in the northern part of the Old World, close to the Chaos Wastes. Because of that, they're constantly dealing with incursions and are the first line of defense against the Dark Forces. If that wasn't enough, they also endure a very harsh climate with extreme winters characterizing the icy perception of this nation and making life extremely challenging for the hardy peoples of the country, who are told to have adapted well to survive and even thrive in these difficult conditions. They are considered masterful horsemen and skilled warriors who are ruled by a powerful Ice Queen who weaves icy winds of magic and becomes even stronger in the depths of winter. So if we look into their past on the tabletop, what references do we have to Kislev? Well, they actually appear in this 4th edition Empire Army book. This thing is an absolute treasure trove of nostalgia for me, as it's the first army book I ever owned. I can't imagine how many hours I spent pouring through it, pining after all the different models, but if I can move on from doing that again, we'll find some entries in the army list for a few different Kislev units. And the book even describes how you can create a Kislev army by using those units and loaning in some of the more traditional Empire units like cannons and infantry. So as far back as the early 90s, GW was giving us a way to play Kislev on the tabletop. But what of those Kislev units? Well, we have wing lancers, who are described as shock cavalry, more lightly armoured and cheaper than traditional knights. We also have horse archers that are armed with short bows and can skirmish. The book gives you some tips on how you can use them to tempt out goblin fanatics or go hunting war machines. We even have an appearance of an Ice Queen. And if we look at the pages here, we'll get some more information on Tsarina Katarin, the Ice Queen of Kislev. At this point in the timeline, she's described as not only the ruler of Kislev, but the most powerful magician ever to wear the crown. She wields a magical sword known as Fear Frost that does d6 damage, and she is a level 3 wizard who can take battle magic, or more interestingly, her own unique lore in ice magic. There's lots of the usual suspects in here, assailments and protection or enchantment spells, along with interesting conveyance spells like Bridge of Ice, allowing you to transport a friendly or an enemy unit 18 inches across the table. But never mind that when we've got magic missiles like Chill Blast here. 2d6 strength 5 hits with no armor saves allowed. And we all thought Fireball was good, but putting power levels of spells from different editions aside, I do hope we get ice magic back with Kislev, as it feels like quite an integral part of their lore. But let's move on. Where else can we find references to Kislev on the tabletop? Well, this supplement released with a White Dwarf back in 6th edition basically gave us an army book for the faction full of lore and a handful of units to play with. It introduced us to Boyars, who are hero level characters to help lead a Kislevite force. They're able to be the army's battle standard bearer and can be mounted and armed with a variety of weapons. We also have Kossars, who are infantry described as being well drilled and able to fight with both bow and great axe. We have the Griffin Legion, who are an elite regiment of winged lancers created when their former leader killed a griffin in single combat. We also have special characters in the Ice Queen again, and also Tsar Boris riding his hulking great bear Erskine. The timeline of the old world means we're unlikely to see Tsar Boris back, but characters with the option to ride bears seems like a certainty. This book has got so much packed into it for what was basically a magazine supplement. There's a scenario, painting guides, instructions on how you can create your own winter terrain. It's available for free online, so I'll pop a link to it in the description below and you can have a look through in your own time if you like, as I think we should move on and have a look at some of the more recent and possibly important references to Kislev. These images are some concept artwork shown for Kislev and Warhammer the Old World in a Warcom article back in March 2020, just when COVID was about to hit. The first map we have here was also from Warcom in March 2020, and in 2021 we had an updated version in another article which shows Kislev as a vast empire which expands all the way through the Mountains of Morn and into the eastern steppes. Clearly, Kislev was being built behind the scenes as a powerhouse in the old world at the time. Plans can change, but if we refer to the main rulebook, we can see that even in here, Kislev is on a level footing with Cathay in terms of its prominence. In the lore section before the rules begin, we have a couple of pages here describing Cathay, and the page before, we have the same amount of content on Kislev. If we flick back a couple, this is the content we have on Beastmen. It certainly looks like Kislev have a level of coverage in here in line with some of the factions who are already in the game. However, we should tread carefully, as if we look on the page here, it does give us an example of how plans can change. These Wolves of the Sea pages are actually describing Norska, but we now know that the Wolves of the Sea are a chaos army of infamy. So a bit of a demotion maybe? A sign that we won't be seeing Norska possibly? Who knows? It does appear that plans for Norska have changed from what we see in this book, but putting that to one side, what do these pages tell us about Kislev? Well, we do find some potential nuggets of info that might give us an idea on what to expect. On the left, we've got bare-chested horse archers mentioned. We've already seen them back in the 4th edition book, but it's good to have them confirmed in here too. Bare-mounted knights. Yes, please. A fixture of the Total War games, which we'll get to later. It'll be amazing to see units of these on the table. Ice-wreathed war sleds. So, icy chariots basically. Of course, we've got Total War again to give us some more clues on those. On the right hand pages, we've got mention of the Ice Queen again. On this occasion, it's Tsarina Mashenka Romanov, who is described as the current Ice Queen, and we do have mention of her wielding ice magic again. It talks about how her ice witches often accompany the army into a battle, bringing freezing winds, hails of ice shards and frozen shields to protect them. We also have mention of Prince Alexis Romanov, Mashenka's only son, who is described as an exceptional warrior trained in lance and blade and comfortable on the saddle of a horse or the back of a warbear. My guess is that we're much more likely to see a model for Prince Alexis than we are the Ice Queen initially, similar to how they're building up to some of the big hitters in the other factions like Chaos, with Friedel getting a mini and being described as one of Azovkul's lieutenants. I wonder if GW will take the opportunity to create a centerpiece model of Prince Alexis on a bear for now. I could be way off, but that's my guess anyway. So there's quite a bit in there, and we're really starting to see GW expand on Kislev from what they were back in the 90s now. No longer just a few cavalry units, they're making much more of a fully fleshed out faction with more high fantasy units that they can use as the basis for some unique looking new models. But let's not stop there. I've already mentioned it, but what does Total War tell us about Kislev? I've never played Warhammer 3, so I've got no experience of Kislev in that game, but if Cafe is anything to go by, I understand the units will be very similar. So let's take a look at the unit list for Kislev in that game. So first up we have some Lord level leaders. This is the Boyar, who we already know about as a fighty combat character. We have Ice Witches with their chill blasts that will hopefully have been toned down a little bit from 4th edition. Frost Maidens, who are basically Ice Witches in training, so I imagine the level 1 and 2 wizards. Finally, we have Patriarchs, who are Sentinels of the Kislev Faith and sound a little bit like support characters who might be able to buff certain units. And then we're on to the infantry. We have Kossars and Armoured Kossars, who are the most basic rank and file, but fight with both ranged and melee weapons, as described in their earlier tabletop days. We have Streltsy, who carry bizarre handguns with an axe head on the haft. Ice Guard, a sisterhood, who are the warrior elite of the Ice Court. And we also have the Tsar Guard, who aren't pictured, but they are described as the elite sword and shield or greatsword infantry. I doubt we're going to get all of those infantry units on the tabletop right away. I think maybe just a couple. Whichever it is though, I imagine the models are going to look just as incredible as the Cafe infantry. Anyway, on to the cavalry, and wing lancers are here again, and they seem to be a sure thing to make it onto the tabletop. The same goes for horse archers too, right? Then we're on to warbear riders, and we've basically had them confirmed already. But let's get on to some of the more fun stuff. We have war sleds, a light and heavy version. They're actually pulled by bears too. Wow, that is going to be cool. I hope we get both, but I imagine maybe only one of them initially. They sound like they're a bit broken in Total War. We'll have to see if they are on the tabletop too. Snow leopards are here, described as fast, harassing beasts that hunt in packs. So, I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like they could be the Kislev chaff equivalent of warhounds. Elemental bears. Wow, these things look massive. My guess is they'll be the equivalent of the Sentinels or the Lanterns model-wise and be one of the centerpiece models of the range. Then we're on to Little Grom, which is bear-pulled artillery that absolutely smacks and does not sound so little either. The Cafe artillery models are some of the best bits of the new range, so I've got high hopes for these, but maybe they could be more of a centerpiece model than a simple bit of artillery. We'll see. And last but not least, Ice Dragons. The Frostworm is described as a flightless drake, and they can be mounted. In Total War, Tsarina Katerin rides one into battle. The way dragons are in Old World and the dragon models released for Cafe, it feels like GW will definitely want to put one of these on the table. So wow, some incredible looking stuff potentially appearing for Kislev. But if it's going to happen, when might it be? We know we've got Beastmen and Wood Elves to come before Cafe, and at the time of recording, we're still even waiting for the last of the High Elves too. It's been almost 3 months now to get the entirety of that faction out. I think it'll take at least a few more months for Beastmen and Wood Elves, which takes us up until August, September time. We'll probably see Cafe around then. Now the big question is what GW want to do after that. Some people say that Kislev are on hold because of real world issues and the potential bad press for GW in releasing them. Other people say that they're essentially finished. They've even had publicity photographs done last year apparently. If that's the case, I don't see why they'd be on hold for real world issues, as would GW want to commit to working on something they weren't sure if they'd be able to release? They're a business at the end of the day. They don't want to spend money on something they might not get back. Realistically, I don't think we'll see Kislev this year, but I'd expect something new for Old World the beginning of next year. It'll be 2 years since the release of the game at that point, so it'll be a fitting time to bring out something relatively big, and that could well be Kislev. But who knows, that's just purely speculation on my part. Let me know in the comments if you're hoping we see them return to the old world, or if you'd rather see something else, and let me know if you think I've missed anything. I'm sure I have. Before I go, I really appreciate if you give the video a like or even subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. For now, I'll say goodbye though, and I'll see you for some more talking Old World soon.